Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Norris at Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our good friend Sam Clement. Sam, say hello.
Hey, John. How are you doing?
Sam, I'm doing fantastically. Recently we have done a podcast on predicting what's going to happen in the upcoming year, and now I thought it'd be kind of fun to do here today, the first week of January 2024, to see whether or not you have any New Year's resolutions, whether or not I have any New Year's resolutions, and whether or not the markets and people in positions of power to affect our daily lives and how we conduct business, whether or not they should have any New Year's resolutions.
I think a lot of people probably should have resolutions, but I've said this every time, I'm not really great at coming up with my own.
All right, do you have any resolutions?
I don't really, it's more the same. I want to get healthier,
well, you're already
probably drink
healthy.
less. I mean, there's always room for improvement, so I guess it's nothing.
Well,
it's not sign up and start going to the gym. It's, maybe don't hit the snooze button when I want it to.
Well, there you go. I guess for me, some of it, lose a little bit of weight, eat a little healthier, like a lot of people. Probably be a little bit more active in the church, and maybe be a little bit more visible in the community. Something along those lines.
It's good stuff.
Just sort of the magnanimous type things, and things that I can do. Sometimes people have ridiculous New Year's resolutions. They're going to do X, Y, Z.
Well, run a marathon by the end of the year.
Run a marathon. That's not going to happen. I have no desire to do something like that. So my New Year's resolutions are a lot like everyone else's: live healthier, do better things, be out in the neighborhood, all that type of stuff.
Sure. So
it's all good, and to read more. Frankly,
that's a good one. I'll take that one out.
Yeah.
I think I probably read, a couple books a year, not anything crazy. And when I find one I like, I read it in 2 days, but maybe getting a little better about it.
I read a little bit more than that, but reading more is much better than sitting around watching the television.
Or the phone, or really anything.
So whatever it is, it's just better.
Yeah.
Better for your brain. So that takes us to the point of the program where, Sam, I guess we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions for other people and whether or not they should have them. So I'm going to start off with low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
Jerome Powell, what should his New Year's resolution be?
Achieve a soft landing.
All right. And how should he go about doing that?
Cutting interest rates tactically a couple times if inflation continues to abate.
All right. And last week I think we established 3 to 4 rate cuts is probably more than likely.
Seems like a sweet spot. They're saying 3, market's saying 6 plus, and kind of in between, so hopefully.
Why don't we say 4?
Okay. 4.
Someplace in between.
4.
All right. Well, I think Jay Powell's New Year's resolution should be exactly that: get monetary policy back to some sense of normalcy, maintain relatively decent positive real interest rates without crashing the economy. That's his resolution.
I think that's a pretty good resolution.
That's a pretty good resolution.
Don't collapse the world's biggest economy.
All right. So how about this one? President Xi's New Year resolution, not what you think, not what you might think it should be, but what do you think his resolution is?
Well, I'll answer both of those. How about that?
Okay, fair enough.
I think his should be don't invade Taiwan.
What do you think his should be?
Figure out when to invade Taiwan.
Unfortunately, I agree with both of your resolutions. I think that's very spot on. So,
and I'm not saying it's going to be this year, but
he's made it a stated goal, and just so happens that
reunification.
Well, fair enough. And he's. I mean, the thing is, everything that's going on in the world right now is just playing right into the Chinese hands as far as that, because we are. The war in Ukraine and even now the war in Gaza is just draining our stockpile of ammunition.
It's draining our ammunition. Our focus is elsewhere. All the journalists are busy talking about the 2 wars and then the Harvard president right now. So they're a little busy.
Very, very busy. Very extremely busy. All right. So we've done Jay Powell. We've done President Xi. I guess we got to bring the presidential election in here. So, I mean, it's take a look at the candidates. President Biden, what should his resolution be this year?
I think his resolution, if I was in his shoes, would be to try and moderate the spending a little bit to at least appease some of the more centrist Democrats, at least, because I frankly don't care which side of the aisle you're on. We're on an unsustainable path. And frankly, it's not a Democrat-only path. It's been going this way for 2 decades, really. And so I think if we can both kind of shift back towards the center of, hey, let's try and we're not going to be able to balance the budget, but let's try and focus on growing and not spend trillions a year.
If I thought, in terms of what I think, if the president did have a resolution this year, I would say somehow figure out a way to convince voters that he is more of a moderate than perhaps he has demonstrated over the last couple of years. And, there might be some people on the far left who are listening to this, although I don't think too many people from the far left do listen to this, but they'd be out there saying he's way too right and all that stuff, I guess, due to the support of Israel. But at the same time, there are plenty of people on the right side of the aisle that would say the Biden administration has been far more progressive, far more left than what anyone would have thought at the beginning of it. So that really doesn't stand in his favor, I think, to capture that middle 20%.
No.
So somehow convincing people perhaps he is a little bit closer to the center than what the administration has demonstrated the last couple of years should be his resolution for the year.
Maybe he could have one other, and that could be, those games that are really good for your brain health.
Which ones are those?
Like Sudokus and things like that. They're supposed to keep
your
brain sharp. Maybe doing one of those a week.
Fair enough.
That'd be a good one.
Now, we picked on the president. How about former President Trump? What should his resolution be?
Probably stay off social media, not spend as much money as we did in his administration either. And, I think that's the big focus for both parties right now is how are you going to get back to a somewhat balanced budget? And I don't have any more confidence in that administration versus the current one to balance the budget.
I would say that if former President Trump did have a resolution, is somehow figuring out a way that it's not all about him all the time.
Okay.
Do you think that's a good resolution?
I think it's a great resolution.
But it's kind of like my saying I'm going to climb Mount Everest.
Yeah, I take it back. It's not a great resolution because a great resolution should be one you can attain.
Okay, all right.
Well, maybe you'll get Everest.
Hey, how about this one? Okay, former President Trump's resolution should be, I'm a lame duck president as soon as I'm elected. That's not necessarily great for the country, so why don't I pull my full faith and credit all my energy behind someone else within the GOP that can win the nomination?
I do think that's going to be an interesting thing, whether he wins or not, or if he doesn't win, says he's not rerunning, whatever. Once we get to a point where it's a post-Trump administrations, what that's going to look like for the GOP, because really since 2016, it's been that people are running on, I support President Trump for the most part. I mean, our own senator's done that. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting what that looks like.
Well, the thing about it is I threw two potential resolutions out there for the former president. I don't think either of them have any chance of happening.
Maybe he'll probably have a golf one, if I had to guess.
All right. Fair enough. All right. So now we've done Jay Powell, Xi, Biden, Trump. Let's take a little bit closer to home. And let's say, what should Hugh Freeze's resolution be for next year?
Shore up the offensive line and coach the receivers coming in and figure out the quarterback situation.
All right. I think that's the exact same resolutions I would have taken across the state. What should Nick Saban's resolution?
Retire. He's done it. Been there, done that.
I would say
pass it on to like Lane Kiffin or something like that.
I'd say find a new center. He's going to have to find a new place kicker too. Records getting out of there, and he was
hopefully a new OC. Well, not hopefully for me, but
yeah.
I hope they keep Tommy Rees.
All right, that's a little bit close to home here in Alabama. We apologize for that. So now that we've talked about really kind of the key international players on a lot of ways.
How about Janet Yellen?
Well, talk about Janet Yellen. I would say my resolution for her next year would be to actually figure out how the Treasury is supposed to work. I know that she's smart enough to do that. However, unfortunately, her comments make her come across as merely a shill for the administration, as opposed to a somewhat or quasi-independent Secretary of the Treasury, which is sort of what we would hope the Secretary of Treasury.
Yes, I hope that because she's always going to come out, and I don't frankly blame her. When you work for the administration, you're going to kind of say what they want you to say. But I would like to see her.
It's a little bit too much of a shill.
Yes, I agree, but that's not going to change, so I'm not going to say that's a resolution.
So
I would say her resolution should be offset.
Get a better haircut, I think.
Yes. Maybe fly first class instead of the economy. I always see pictures of her in. But Mine would be issue more treasury bills and less notes and bonds, and maybe offset a little bit of the quantitative tightening.
Fair enough. Okay. Anyone else you want to ask me to start off with?
Oh, man.
Because I got one for you.
Okay, I'll think about it.
All right. The American voter. What should their resolution be for 2024?
Oh, man.
You can't look at me blankly like that. Come on.
My first answer is look outside the two-party system. But that goes back to my resolutions need to be somewhat realistic.
Well, I would say to demand better. I mean, frankly, we demand better. Be honest. If someone from the polls is talking to you, don't just say whatever you think you're supposed to say. Be honest, because, while polls are famous for being wrong, they also do influence a lot of decision making. And so they don't have to be right to influence decision making. So if you're out there and someone asks you a question for a poll or you get polled yourself on these type of things, please by all means answer correctly and answer honestly. If you're not for President Trump, don't say that you are just because that's the way you feel. So you got to say. And the same is for President Biden as well. Go ahead and answer it with your best of intentions and honesty.
So you did American voter. What about just the average American investor?
The average American investor next year should resolve to look outside of the top 7 tech and communications names and find maybe some attractive values in old economy sectors, also known as value sectors. And then, by the way, take a look at small and mid caps, which have underperformed relative to large cap over the last, gee whiz, for in recent memory. And you might not make up all your money. You might not outperform crazily next year, but at some point everything reverts to the mean, and you won't be wrong. You'll just be early.
I have one to add to that.
Okay.
Log out of your account.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one.
Log
Don't look
out.
at it. Well, that's the same
because
thing.
Because it's American investors, there's all these great polls on bullish and bearish sentiment in the average investor and how much of a contrarian indicator it is. And, people tend to be very emotional with their money, and rightfully so. They worked hard for it, but that leads to a lot of bad decisions a lot of the time. So that is my number one goal or resolution for someone that wants to invest, is figure out a plan that works and stick to it and don't look at it.
That's almost a good resolution for the American news consuming public as well. Don't consume so much of it.
I agree.
It's one of those deals that we've gotten ourselves into kind of a quandary that you have all these stations that have 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year that have to fill up, and they've got to get advertisers for it, so they tell you all kinds of outlandish things. Don't necessarily do all the fact-checking necessary because they don't have time to do it, because they've got to get out there and get plenty of likes, clicks, shares, and reposts and what have you. So, by all means, watch less of it. Do fewer clicks. Don't participate in message boards. It's kind of fun. It's a little bit of a dopamine rush, I know, to get likes and all that stuff. But at the same time, if you don't consume as much, you're not missing out on much, because you'll actually probably get better journalism down the road. Sam, your thoughts on that?
I agree. 100%.
All right. Any more resolutions that we have here today?
Man. I don't know of any.
All right. I've got one more I want to find out from you.
Okay.
Just one more. What should Vladimir Putin's resolution be this year?
Chill with the war in Ukraine is
chill
out.
That's a
chill out, huh? With the war in Ukraine.
The former KGB colonel
needs a chill pill. Needs a chill pill.
I don't know if he's capable of
but that's and I don't know what the answer is. I don't think Russia's going to go back to taking none of the land, and so far the Ukrainian stance has been we're not giving them anything, and I just don't know how that gets resolved. I don't know. I think they need to stop killing 20 to 40-year-old men though, and then bombing private citizens and apartment buildings and just humanitarian crimes.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm not sure if there is any end in sight. And I think for the reasons why neither side wants to compromise. And when you're in that situation, it's both sides are saying unconditional surrender, and that doesn't give people a lot of outs. Understanding that Kiev doesn't want to give up territory that they think that is their sovereign. right to have, and Russia feels kind of the same way. So, in terms of Vladimir Putin's resolutions, I think he's going to have to figure out some way to either bleed Ukraine white next year, or somehow, I don't know, get more
what enough is to
enthusiasm
save
into
face
just
or
something.
How about Maloney or Javier Milei, some other country leaders? What do you think their resolutions should be?
I think the resolution should be making sure that they get their policies and sort of their thought process well communicated across the entire electorate, and making sure that the court systems and other things are all moving in the right direction. Oftentimes, you don't necessarily have bad policies. You have bad selling of policies to others.
Yeah.
You can arguably say that the former President Trump's a lot of his policies weren't necessarily bad. They are very poor. They were sold very poorly to a good chunk of the American public, and as a result, he was not as popular as he could have been. So
Yeah.
I would say the same thing has happened in Italy and Argentina, where both of those people are right of center in a world which has been very much driven by globalists in Argentina and throughout much of Europe. So they are going to have to sell their programs even that much harder. Now Maloney's pretty popular, and I think for good reason, but we've already seen some setbacks down in Buenos Aires,
Yeah.
and as a result, the gentleman down there has a lot more work to do. So it is going to have to be learning how to sell.
Yeah, I'd say for him, it's stick to the plan. You know, I think politicians often sell one thing and through either not wanting to actually do it or figuring out it can't be done. I'd like to see him stick to his plan. With her, I think the focus is continue to push businesses to come back to Italy.
All right, and so while we're doing that, I thought we were in that. I mean, you asked me about those two. I'm going to ask you about our friend Sunak, or at 10 Downing Street. What do you think his resolution should be?
Fix their economy. Look, I love London. I love England. It's the only country I'd even think about living in outside of the U.S., but they're not in a great spot right now. And it's gotten better. You know, global inflation has come down, but their economy is in kind of a weak spot where they're not tons of growth, and they're still having a little bit of an inflation problem. And then you have healthcare on top of that, and tons of issues, immigration, what have you. There's lots of issues over there right now.
I would say that you're absolutely right on that. UK does have a lot of issues. I feel very attachment to the United Kingdom, more so than most other countries around the world. And I think for obvious reasons, being an American, I would say that the current Prime Minister's resolution for this year is actually trying to determine what the Tory party stands for. You take a look at the Conservative Party, or for all intents and parties, the Tories, and go, what do they stand for? Because what they stand for looks a lot like what Labour stood for not 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10, 15 years ago.
And so sitting there taking a look at it, what does the conservative movement mean in the United Kingdom? Because the stuff that the Prime Minister is throwing up there certainly doesn't look like what Margaret Thatcher would have thrown up there, at least in my estimation, being someone that lives
probably closer
very far
to Tony
away,
Blair than
very, very far away. So I think that's really needs to be what Downing Street needs to focus on this year, is actually trying to figure out exactly what a conservative position would be and selling it correctly to the population. Because right now, I think that's what a lot of voters are up in the air. They just don't understand what the conservatives stand for in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyone else we need to touch on?
I think we've covered it all.
We have covered a lot of folks. So, guys, if you're out there listening, thank you for listening to us here at Trading Perspectives. As always, if you're interested in reading more or hearing more of what we got to say or what we think, you can always drop us a line at tradingperspectives@oakworth.com, or you can leave us a review on the podcast outlet of your choice. If you're interested in reading more or hearing more, by all means, go to oakworth.com and take a look underneath the Thought Leadership tab and find links to all kinds of exciting information, including links to previous Trading Perspectives podcasts, links to our blog/newsletter Common Sense, and links to our quarterly piece, which should be coming out in the next couple of weeks, called Macro and Market. And then also coming up, Sam, updates on our quarterly webinar, which we're planning to throw.
State of the Union.
Yeah, pretty much Tuesday, January the 23rd. at 9:30 Central Time, I believe it is.
Yep.
So there will be information on the website underneath Thought Leadership. If you're interested in listening to that, you get to hear us and the two of us and other members of our investment committee will be there and tell you what we think about the upcoming year, and it should be a lot of fun. Mark that on your calendars. January the 23rd, I think it's at 9:30 in the morning.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
All right. With that, Sam will give you last chance to come up with a resolution for anyone.
That's all I got.
All right. That's all I've got today, too. Y'all take care.